recording, having a nice professional start. Okay, cool. We are recording. We're all good. So Dark Bleatings, everyone. For the first time for author and creator interviews, we have a pair of people instead of just one. We have Jonathan and Michelle Butcher, who very extreme, no, wait, those aren't words I wanted to say. An extremely creative pair, and also a couple, who both work in sort of indie horror, wielding very different results sometimes. For example, Michelle, you've never quite made me sick in my own mouth. I don't know what I was thinking with the Chocolate Man after the short story.
Oh, it was Chocolate Man. I thought it was the first 7 lines of What Good Girls Do.
I don't know. Chocolate Man seems like it could do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a weak stomach for that particular type of stuff, so I don't know why I read it. Chocolate, no, and I don't mean that offensively. It's just like I already knew going in. I think I was just testing my own boundaries.
Remind me, are you talking about the short story or the novel? Just very quickly.
Well, I read the short story and then I read the novel.
Oh wow!
After being sickened by the short story, and I just thought,
story's pretty gross.
Yeah,
but so was the novel. Yeah, to be fair, it's just more of it.
Yeah.
Glutton for punishment, aren't you, Kayla?
I just had to. At this time, I was also trying out some Matt Shaw for the first time. So I think I was dabbling in the extreme and the offensive and stuff. So welcome, both of you. Thanks for being here. It's really fun to have a pair of people to talk to. So if we can start with, I understand that you've collaborated on something. Would you like
to your idea? Do you want to give a?
Yeah, sure. For the past couple of years, Jonathan and I, after watching the film Necromantic, and then me seeing an idea suggested on a subreddit about consensual necrophilia, we spent the last 2 years writing a novel about basically a love motel for necrophiles in the West Texas desert. It's called Motel Styx, and it's a pretty good balance of both of our talents in writing horror. I write more literary, kind of eloquent things, dark concepts, and Jonathan is much more extreme and often brutal physically and descriptive wise and stuff. So, and he's just great with plot lines and characters. So it's just a good balance. But we released that on Friday. We announced
we released the announcement
the
of
pre-order.
The pre-order.
Yeah,
yes.
It's not quite out yet.
I don't know whether this podcast will be released before then, but it's going to be available to buy on June 22nd. So at the moment, we're just coming off a weekend of doing a whole bunch of self-promotion through videos and stuff
almost
like that.
Non-stop.
Because, when Michelle said it's a good mix of both of us, it's not just the writing. It's a bigger project than that because Michelle has built a website for Motel Styx.
For the business.
From the ground
Motel
up.
Styx, for the motel.
Yeah, so they have,
cool.
There's a Facebook page, there's a TikTok page, and there is an entire website. So if you want to donate your body, you can get, where to go. If you want to find out, what delicious cocktails are available in the Motel Members Lounge, you can go there, or you can check out the videos. And we have actually created cocktails and filmed them yesterday. And so it's quite a broad project that both of us have contributed to in different ways. It's been a blast, actually. I'm really proud of it.
Yeah,
that's such a great marketing idea. It reminds me of the marketing for the Blair Witch Project.
Make it feel real.
Yeah. So it was extra immersive, and that's such a fun idea to make a website for the place and everything.
Originally, we were going to let that kind of live a bit first and try to kind of have a bit of a viral kind of approach to it, but our pre-order dropped kind of early, and so we needed to kind of do the cover announcement and kind of get ahead in case anyone who follows either of us on Amazon got a notification and kind of would announce it for us. So
originally we wanted to check in to the motel because we're both visiting Texas later this year, and the motel is in Texas. yeah, we built this Facebook page and we wanted to check into it, but for some reason we weren't able to do that, and so we leaked the website. And as soon as we did that, because every book now button in the website leads through to the pre-order book, we were like, let's just control this ourselves and make the announcement before someone else leaks it, and then it might, trickle out in drips and drabs.
Yeah, but people will still find the website. You can still interact with it. It's going to live, forever, really, as long as I'm alive to pay for the web hosting. It's and we're just going to continue to add things to it. We have stickers and bookmarks and things, magnets that have the motel logo, and that you can buy through the website.
You're talking about T-shirts as well.
Yeah,
we've got various catchy slogans like "Once you go slack, you never go back," things like that.
Or where La Petite Mort meets La Grande Mort.
Yeah, the intellectuals out there.
Yeah, so it's been so much fun.
People seem to be enjoying it so far as well. We've had a few fantastic authors who have kindly offered to read it, and they really seem to be digging it. So yeah, hopefully, once it's released, other people will dig it too.
Yeah.
That's such a great fun idea. I'll put the for anyone who's interested, I'll put the link for all of that, the links in the description, so that everyone can go and have a little peruse at their leisure.
Poke around on the website.
It's quite unique as well, because we started writing it when we still lived 5,000 miles apart. I'm assuming most people who listen to this won't know our background, but I'm a British author. Michelle's an American author, as you may be able to tell by our accents. And we met on Facebook during the lockdown and spent the first 2 years of our relationship apart.
Yeah.
And I was watching Necromantic for a different website, which I did with Christopher Triana and
a different
John
podcast.
Wayne. Sorry, podcast, yeah. And John Wayne Communali, when we were talking about German horror. And talking about, you just mentioned that I made you sick in your mouth. You were almost sick.
Yeah, the movie Necromantic.
Necromantic, yeah.
Was the first to kind of make me gag, and it really stuck with me, and kind of, I don't want to say it ignited a passion for necrophilia, because I certainly don't want to sleep with anybody dead. I like my husband. No, to each their own. But I just became fascinated by that paraphilia and the people who crave that, and just this idea, like, I could not stop thinking about the motel and kind of building the business in my mind. And then Jonathan got really excited about the book idea as well, and asked, like, should we write it together? And it's just
was it me? I didn't remember who'd suggested it.
Yeah, I think you wanted in because I was. Yeah, it was really getting developed, but you're also much better at, I get distracted by the pretty shiny, the business will do this and have this. And Jonathan's like, but what's the story? I'm writing a book. What's the story? Yeah. So he came in and kind of reined me in a bit in the ways that I needed. And
I think that we managed to keep almost everything that you wanted in there. It's just, I feel like we, maybe spread it throughout the book rather than just dumping everything all over. Yeah. So I think if I hadn't joined in, it probably would have been a fantastic story, because you write amazing stories, but it would have been much shorter. Yeah. I reckon it probably would have been about 10K. Yeah. So I'm glad that we made it into a full novel.
8 of that, just them in the gift shop reading all of the different slogans on products.
It's so cool that you've collaborated on something like this together, because over the years I met both of you online before you were together, and worked on projects with both of you separately. So it was like cool to see you, like, I don't know, like, come together, and I was like, oh, look at those two. And yeah, so and I know both of your work. Are you still there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you froze on my screen, and I was like, oh gosh, am I just talking to myself? Yeah. So so familiar with Jonathan. Your face is frozen in the funniest position.
Quite rubbery face, to be fair.
Yeah.
Usually, if this happens like during the recording, when I actually watch it back later, it's fine. It just does it to me in the moment for some reason.
Just messing with your mind.
Yeah, but if not, then everyone is going to have just the funniest little snapshots of Jonathan's face from time to time. It's just really getting you at the best times.
Yeah, he'll like it that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sorry, I was saying. So I was like familiar with both of your work before, and like you said, you do like tend to you know both in the horror field, but completely different approaches to it, and types of stories and stuff. And I obviously know. So I think Michelle, I must have met you through the Give anthology.
Yep.
That was one of my favorite submission calls. That was a charity anthology for organ donation. So the submission call was like, you have to do something to do with organ donation. So I went childish with it. I of course went for testicles. And then Jonathan, I was reading, I think Justin Park must have introduced me to your work, and I probably met you at a horror convention or something, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
And I actually had a little live reading of the first page of What Good Girls Do, thanks to Justin, because he was like, oh, have you read this? It's amazing. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, I tend to veer away from that subject matter a little bit. And he was like, no, let me just read the opening page to you.
I was subjected to it.
I was like, I don't know. I think I'm going to read it anyway. But yeah, he's I'm sad to see Sinister Horror Company go, because Justin very enthusiastically promoted the shit out of the books he published. And that it must have been the year that you released that book that I was on the convention circuit with him, and everyone that would stop at
Sheffield,
the table.
I imagine. I probably either met you at Sheffield or maybe Birmingham HorrorCon.
Yeah, one of those. So yeah, it's just like it's been like, just as like an outside observer, it's just been really fun for me to get to work with you on separate things, and then just see you sort of like merge your talents. And,
yeah, because you contributed very kindly to Visions from the Void.
Yes, that was a fun anthology.
Yeah,
the anthology, which was based on my dad's art, which was very cool. Yeah, I loved your story.
We had little you sent us little art pieces and stuff with the books. Like yes, I still have all of that. It was it was like really fun projects to work on. Has your experience on the publishing side impacted how you approached the marketing for this book that you've done together?
I kind of feel like this is the first year where I'm really giving it a go to try and market myself a bit better. So yeah, this is by far the most ambitious thing that either of us have ever done. I mean, you've had your own website before, in fact, so I can't speak for you, but for me, this is way more than I've ever done before. So yeah, I guess I was inspired by Duncan Ralston's release Ghostland. That was what I think it was my idea to act almost like it was a real motel, even though that didn't come to fruition. When he wrote Ghostland, he made out that one of the characters from his book, the big villain, in fact, was a lost author, and he was trying to find out more about it, and sort of was trying to whip up a bit of a viral thing with that. So I guess that inspired me a bit.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like we're both finally more settled. Like we moved down to be closer to his family, where he grew up, and we've been here for a while now. We're in a really nice place that we love and closer to a lot of friends, and it just feels like we have more emotional energy to put toward like our projects, and this one really has allowed us to use all of the skills that we came with. So Jonathan is an editor, like a copywriter, as his day job. And he, like I said, he's just incredible with plotting and characters and things. And I used to be a web and graphic designer, and I took we just we get to do all of it. So from start to finish, like creating the story and editing it and everything, all the way down to the marketing end. And to just see it grow and stuff, it's just been like, it's like having a baby kind of together. Like we've just been able to, which we're not going to do. We're not going to do, but
a lovely dead
Yeah, a lovely necrotic baby. Yeah, it's just been really exciting to kind of use all of our skills and gain new ones. Like Jonathan has been doing videos to help promote it on TikTok, but also on Facebook, posting the cocktail, making videos. And so he's been working more with like Adobe Premiere to edit the videos and learning how to use that program more. And so it's just, yeah, I think it's really pushed us and will continue to push us, but also just been an awesome way to kind of marry all of our skills into one
Yeah. Well, that's
awesome showcase.
That's the thing with being indie writers. Like a lot of the time, unless you've got a big name for yourself, you have to do the promotion yourself. And
Yeah.
yeah. And although I was saying yesterday, we spent a day filming and editing and posting things and stuff. And when we were in a graveyard in a beautifully sunny day, listing the various classifications of necrophile and giggling to ourselves about it, I was saying, this is the way that we can make marketing okay. It has to be fun, because otherwise it's just draining and exhausting.
Yeah, and historically, neither of us are that great at consistently doing it for our work, but it is something we want to be better at. Like Jonathan said, this year he's really trying to kind of make a go of really getting more writing out more often and just really building up his name. And so
like last
make
year,
it fun.
Yeah, it's just important, isn't it? I was just going to say, last year the author brawl on books of horror. What Good Girls Do somehow managed to get into that, which was incredible. And
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it changed my the results of that. Even though I went out in the first round, it was far too extreme for anything like that. But apparently some people love it. But I was going to say that had such a profound effect on the way that I look at my writing, because I just think, if there's enough people to vote for that book, as extreme as it is, to appear out of all of these amazingly, talented authors' work, to appear in the top 32 initially for that brawl, maybe there really is something in this. So yeah, this year I'm trying to release 3 full-length books, and just get a bit better at the marketing. Yeah.
It's that I say this every time I meet someone who's a brand new author, who hasn't maybe published anything yet, and they're like completely new, and they're like, well, what do I do? And I'm like, go in, use the Books of Horror Facebook group. I honestly think that is one of like the biggest promotional tools that authors can use, because it's full of readers and authors, which means there's always like really fun conversation. Like the number of times someone posts like, oh, I absolutely love this book, my new favorite author, and then the author pops up going, oh, thank you so much, glad you like the book. And then people are having like, they get to talk to their favorite authors in there. And I have bought a lot of books based on recommendations, and they're like, if I'm like, guys, I'm looking for an adult witch horror book.
Yeah, a very niche description of something, and
yeah,
like, I've got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you read a book as a teenager and you don't remember what it is, but you just put some vague description of the plot, guaranteed someone always knows like what you're talking about. So it's just a wonderful place. And whenever I see something getting like lift off in that group, I get so excited for the author if it's an indie, because that group has got the potential to. There are like 50,000 members of that group, so. When everyone's all hyping a book, regardless of whether or not it's your usual subgenre, What Good Girls Do was recommended to me so many times when I went into that group looking for extreme horror and splatterbook recommendations to do like a reading vlog, and I don't even know how many comments where everyone was like just chipping in with their recommendations, and I thought I'll take the most voted for, the top 5, and yours was 6th. It was but it was like a considerable number of people though. So like even though it didn't crack the top 5 of like the overall, it was a lot of people. And I was like, well, I have already read that one, and the vlog was supposed to be for like stuff I've never read. I can't look at cheese the same thanks to D.
Let me guess. Zola, Violence on the Meek.
Left
here. Yeah.
I don't reckon that's extreme enough. No. Possible. But I was going to say the Slob. Michelle said Left to You.
Oh no, not that one.
No, it was The Slob?
No.
Oh,
Though a
really?
lot of people recommended that one though.
Yeah.
There was Womb,
Oh,
Yeah,
well.
amazing. Dead
Um,
Inside?
Dead Inside. Oh my god, that one wasn't quite for me.
I love that one. It's hilarious.
I know that people are very love and hate about that one. I've had that book has inspired so many conversations that I've just had in like private messages with people that either love it or hate it. And then No One Rides for Free, Jimmy Sonic, which I got yelled at over that one because extreme horror isn't like, I'm not the most seasoned extreme horror reader, so I always make sure I mention that if I review an extreme horror book, because I'm like, I'm not the typical target audience, so I don't have a lot of basis for comparison, and I have a
disclaimer.
Yeah, I have a weaker stomach than most, so the things that I consider extreme are not very extreme to extreme horror readers. But
probably the same as me, honestly, if I read stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
But you should feel confident in what you're doing, Jonathan, because I know that extreme horror and splatterpunk is like there's in the general world of literature, there is such a snobbery about horror full stop. Like I do always notice that whenever a horror film starts to do really well, all of a sudden it's rebranded as a thriller. So it wins awards. And yeah, I always see, I've seen loads of horror authors and their books are marketed as thrillers. And I'm just like, people do like horror, guys. Like,
yeah, you don't have to shy around the topic. It's
yeah, it's a lot of people talk about why that happened because like during the 80s and 90s there was the heyday for horror, but yeah, since then it's very difficult to market it as a horror. Like you think of the writers.
Some websites don't even list horror as a category.
Yeah, it's fine. It's hard to find on Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is shocking to me. I mean,
well,
that's
if you
just the whole genre cut out.
If you use Amazon to find audiobook narrators, you've got to like list the genre of your book in there, and horror's not even there. So you have to put like mystery, crime, and thriller, and then just put it in the notes. Like, this is actually but yeah, I got yelled at over No One Writes for Free because I was like, oh, this was my favorite of the bunch in terms of like emotional impact and stuff. And then my very sensitive, lovely friend was like, I've got a bone to pick with you. And I was like, I did say it was extreme. She's like, well, I didn't know because I've never read an extreme book. She's she's a huge Graham Masterton fan, so it was quite a switch.
He does some quite extreme stuff, but yeah, he doesn't.
Not quite.
No One Rides for Free.
Extreme. But yeah, I was going to say, so yeah, horror is sort of considered like a lowbrow art form, and then when you get into the subgenres, there is a stigma attached from outsiders, though, about extreme horror and splatterpunk. But that does not mean that there aren't really talented writers like yourself doing really good work in this field, and you just have to ignore the people who aren't your target audience anyway, because they're not going to get it.
Of course.
They don't get it.
They never will.
They never will.
I am going to be writing a less extreme project later on in the year, though, and it's quite a relief to dig myself a bit out of the muck and be doing something.
Come up for air.
yeah, a little bit less slimy and less extreme and less hideous. Sometimes I just need a break. So yeah, I'm going to be delving elsewhere.
Segues me very nicely into my next question. I wanted to start with Michelle for this. So, with sort of like this collaborative project aside, I was concerned. I was concerned about your mind frame. I was curious about the sort of like mind frame you go in when you're actually writing, like in the moment. And yeah, I'd like both of you to talk about that because obviously, again, typically different types of horror. I was wondering about like where you kind of go emotionally when you're writing, Michelle.
I haven't put out very much in the last year. Mm-hmm. But I tend to write from a very emotional place. Like I write literary horror is just the best way I think to describe it. So it's more emotionally damaging and kind of traumatizing, like psychologically, than it is too heavy on description of gore or things like that, violence. So some of my best work that I think really fits that kind of bill is in my collection, Old Farmhouses of the North, and that most of those things were written during a very difficult time in my life when my mother was very sick, and then leading up to her death. It was released, I think, just right around when she passed away. So I think most of the time when I write my best, it is usually because I am hurting for some reason, over something. Yes. Yeah. There. In this last year, I released a short story called "The Cavity Wall," and that's in the anthology Through Books of Horror, Dead Girls and Dead Things. And I wrote it because we had a bird die in our wall, like a wild bird. Yeah, and it was just a really weird thing to happen. I kind of said, "Oh, this could happen," and like when the babies were born in the wall, we could hear there was a nest, and then it did happen. And it was just very difficult. We couldn't get to the bird to save it in time. And like the landlord let us make holes in the wall and things like that. And so I wrote this story about a woman going through a pregnancy loss and then also having this bird in the wall. And so I think it's easier for me to write around stuff I'm going through, even if it's, in that case, it's other than the pregnancy thing, but the bird in the wall is quite on the nose, whereas a lot of my other writing is based on trauma in my life, just very heavily veiled. So I think I'm very happy now, which is sometimes I get worried that I'm not going to produce the type of emotionally impactful stuff that I have in that collection, because I have a wonderful husband. We are settled together now. And I get really scared that I just can't do it anymore because I'm too happy. But
just got to find different
but I'm
ways
quite emotional as a person anyway. So I'm sure anything could really make me cry. And yeah, so yeah, I think for me, I don't know, but Motel Styx is more just fun. Like, I think that even though it's really disgusting, like the topic, and kind of there's a lot of tragedy in it, it was just exciting to explore that world and kind of go escape in it and build it up and kind of play in this thing that we were creating. And so it's been different than how I normally work. Yeah.
I wouldn't worry too much that if you're not drawing from something like really deep and painful, that's going to have like a negative impact, because you just generally have a great way with words. So like whatever you're pulling from for the story that you want to tell. I had a feeling that you were going to say that, because I'm the same when I write. I recognize it in your writing. It's very it does elicit a lot of like emotions. And I write from, if something has troubled me, sometimes it's not even intentional, it just comes out, and then later I'm like, oh, I was writing a story about that person.
Oh, that's about that. Yeah. It's the same. Can you stop writing stories about us? About how I don't listen to you? I don't know what you said, but yeah, I get that, definitely.
But yeah, I feel very connected when I'm reading your work, and I don't like your only strength isn't in the painful stuff. So yeah, just proceed verily, producing whatever you want. Jonathan, where does your head go when you're writing like your most horrible, vile stuff? Do you like sink yourself in, or do you have to like pull back and see it?
Depends on the story. So you say my most horrible, vile stuff, but I would say there's a huge difference between like What Good Girls Do and the sequel What Good Men Do, and then Chocolate Man. Most of the time I'm all about just telling a good story. That's genuinely what draws me in. And whereas you were saying what sort of mind frame do we go into, Michelle, you kind of put your work together almost like a jigsaw, it seems.
Yes.
Like you'll write that bit there and then that bit there, and really like fine tune every single sentence until it's perfect. I can't do that.
And then stitch it together.
Yeah. Whereas I need to be in the scene. So when I'm there, and I can't picture it, it's really weird. I don't have a visual imagination at all. All I can see is like flashes and like tiny specific details, so I have to string them together, but I have to be there in the moment, right there. So if I'm writing something disgusting, unfortunately I'm right there in it. You
can't like interrupt him, like, because it will really break that concentration of his, and because he really does get into it, and he's
I do get a
kind of
bit Jack
living in
Torrance
I was
sometimes.
just gonna say.
yeah, all
Yeah.
work and no play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really only what good girls do is that's pretty much the only time I've ever written something because I was pissed off.
Mhm.
Thankfully, I've never experienced anything like that, but I've known people who have, and I needed to get some stuff off my chest, basically.
It, yeah.
But generally speaking, I just want to entertain myself and tell a really well structured. I'm all about the structure and the characters. I keep banging the table.
You do, babe. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So that's all my aim is, really. Whether it's something gross or whether it's something intense or whatever it is, I just want to tell a decent story.
That's like really the bottom line every time. Do you have you guys experienced this thing of like you'll have like a favorite piece of your own work, but that's not as popular with your readers as like maybe a piece of your work that you're not as fond of? Has that happened?
Definitely.
Can I go first?
Of course.
Sure. I think for me, it's usually like Jonathan has a favorite piece of work of mine that I don't agree with. Like if I were to choose, he loves some of my stuff that I'm not as in love with as other stories. And so it's been.
Which ones?
Well, the Cavity Wall, for instance. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What else did I think it
What
was
to expect when you're expecting. I think we both agree on that one.
Well, that's one of my favorites. Yeah. But I think, sometimes I'll write something new, and I think every time I write something new and Jonathan reads it, he's like, oh, this is your best. Like, or, like, this is my favorite of yours. But I still am kind of really attached to some of the stuff in Old Farmhouses. I just feel like it is some of my best writing. And there's stuff in there that I read and I just can't even believe that I wrote that. I made it up. Like, and he had quoted me in the past, something when we first were dating. He was reading some of my work as I was writing that collection, and he posted it without like a credit for it, and I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. He's like, yeah, you wrote it. I was like, oh, I don't even remember writing that, but yeah, it's in my book. So I think that's the main thing I notice. He likes stuff of mine that I'm less in love with than other stuff.
Yeah, the Cavity Wall's still my number one of yours, definitely. For me, I think Chocolate Man is the best written thing I've ever done, the novel. I genuinely do. Unironically, I think that it achieves everything that I wanted it to achieve. I think it's got good seeding in it. I think that there's scenes of body horror, the like of which I've never read in anything else. And I'm not saying it's better than everything else. I'm saying it's unique. That's all.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah. So that, and also like the first thing that I ever wrote, I don't think it'll ever get traction. But I still think it's got some of my best writing. It was the Children at the Bottom of the Garden.
I
is
love
this
that.
huge, sprawling 500-page book, and it was the first novel that I ever finished. And there's like 7 main characters, and you see through all of their different perspectives, and they've all got separate character arcs, and it's an epic piece of work. And I still love it, but I think it's never going to be as popular as just something as fast paced and punch you in the face.
It's a bit more kind of meandering in a sense. But yeah, I did love that. I love Children at the Bottom of the Garden. Yeah.
But I tend to love whatever I'm writing at the time.
Which is a good sign.
Do,
you should hopefully love your stuff, because how could others?
Otherwise, it wouldn't be finished. Basically,
yeah,
if I write something that I'm not in love with, then I kind of move on to the next thing because it's not keeping me there. I'll never fight through that. So, yeah.
Do you have writing routines? This is a question that I don't really ask like full-time authors in traditional publishing, because their lives are different. Because if it is your full-time job, then your day-to-day is going to be very different to trying to write on top of your job or your other priorities. So yeah, I was wondering how you because you guys are very busy.
We try to not be busy, but somehow we can't avoid it. We're terrible at taking it easy. Well, I will start by saying Jonathan has a routine and I don't feel like I do. And you can tell them about your routine because it's quite strict when you're working on something seriously you're trying to finish.
Yeah, so I write as my main job. I'm a copywriter, but I work full time from home. I work for the University of Wolverhampton from Cornwall.
Oh,
So I'm
great.
250, 300 miles away from where I work. So I get up at about 6:15, 6:30 on a good day. And then I'm generally behind the computer writing for a good hour before work. And I'll start work at 8 o'clock or 8:30. And then if I'm really into it, I'll probably write my fiction through my lunch break as well. So I'll be, working 2 hours, 2.5 hours a day. And I hear about some authors, and possibly they're the full-time ones, like you said, who, are dissatisfied if they write less than 4,000 words a day. That is not me.
That's not very likely for me either. That's a lot in a day.
Yeah. If I hit 500 words, then I'm happy with my target. On a good day, I'll write more like 1,000, maybe a bit more. But basically, when I'm trying to write every single day, 500 words in the morning. It's my target. Yeah.
Yeah, I watch a lot of like booktubers, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm doing a week doing Stephen King's writing routine," and then at the end of it, they're like, "I'm so frustrated because I couldn't do the routine because da 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 da." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, he's it's been like, I don't know, nearly 60 years. He's
had a bit of time to hone that routine, and
if you were doing his writing routine, yeah." Imagine trying to do that. Well, although saying that, I think his writing routine before he was published was harder because he was working like 3 jobs and he lived in a trailer and they had babies and stuff. So I don't know. I just don't. Wow. I just think he's some sort of wizard. Is the conclusion?
Yeah, I don't think everyone's Stephen King, and I think that history will demonstrate that.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I don't have a routine, and I think that goes back to me tending to write from a more emotional place. So it's often when I'm inspired. Since I moved to England, I've gotten sick a lot. I think I'm just catching like all the germs here. So if I'm feeling well, it's a bit easier for me to want to write and I get more inspired. But, if I've been sick or something, my head's kind of foggy and it's very easy for me to just kind of put things off. And I think Motel Styx made me a little bit more like, I've got to get this done. But, the pressure of not really a deadline because it was self-imposed, but just really wanting to get it out, to get it finished and have people reading it. So yeah, I write when I'm inspired, when I'm feeling well. I don't wake up early to write. I love sleeping. So I love to write at night.
I think your lack of routine is also to do with the fact that you, this is the first time you've had a Monday to Friday,
that's true,
9 till 5 job.
Yeah, for 7 years I worked for a bookstore, and so that was a changing schedule every week, opens, closes, mid shifts. I worked on weekends sometimes. Like there was never a set schedule. So yeah, I'm just still kind of adjusting to having regular hours for my day job, and
it's hard.
Yeah.
I work from home now, which I really enjoy working from home because that's given me, and I've got quite a lot of freedom about when in the day I actually work my hours and stuff, which sometimes that is to my detriment because I'm not great at sticking to a routine. So if it's something I have to impose myself, I'm like, okay. Before that, I spent a few years working nights, Thursday, Sunday, and then I started cutting it down. So I would finish work at 6 a.m. and then have an hour drive home. And so I wouldn't get up until maybe 3 o'clock or something. And that was and I'd have to keep that routine on the days I wasn't working, obviously. Otherwise, I'd be really messed up for my first week.
Yeah.
I still have this this mind frame of like, I don't want to go to sleep because I feel like I'm missing the best, because on the nights I wasn't working, I was just awake by myself and it's all peaceful and nice, and I would do all my writing like in the nighttime then, and I loved it. Now I'm like, I have to adjust to being awake in the daylight hours. Same. It's not as spooky. Did you have any like changes in how you normally work because you were collaborating? Like, did you just feel more inspired to get stuff done? Because like, how did you work it? Did you write a chapter each and go back and forth, or?
Absolutely not.
No?
There was a first draft, and that was just over, I think, 15,000 words, because it was barely a draft. It was like the way that I write, where it's like bits of scenes here and there, all in the right order, but like with major gaps between, or like little notes that said insert gory description here, you know, like not fully fleshed out, just kind of
Threesome with corpse here.
Yes. Yes,
that's a
the
genuine
best
note
one.
she left me.
Threesome with corpse here. Yeah, just like a very loose framework. And then I passed that to Jonathan. And then how many, I don't know what it was after
That was
you
about
had
42,000 words. I would call that the first full draft.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't very good, but it was a full draft. And you were saying, did we have to adjust the way we work? Yes, because I am merciless with my work. Even if I like something, if it doesn't service the story, it goes.
Yeah, I'm like that.
Yeah, no, Michelle is not like that.
I am very emotionally attached to every single word that I write. Thank you.
Yeah, so there were certain gross things that Michelle wanted in there, or fun things, or funny things, or whatever.
Or things about the business of the motel, and
Yeah.
you know, just extra stuff.
Yeah, that I had to be careful to include, but which I had to
Make
it, you know, show it rather than tell it for a start, and make it an intrinsic and important part of the story that made sense with the characters that we built.
Why are we telling the reader this?
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, I wasn't able to be quite as merciless with it, but Michelle, you gave me a lot of leeway with certain aspects of it, so I was very much able to create a story that I was happy with. It's just it was different.
Yeah, and then he gave it back to me, and I kind of prettied it up, and you know, just kind of expanded more on descriptions and things, and kind of took a little bit out, but not that much. And then I added, I don't know how much more.
A few thousand words.
Yeah, 6,000, 5,000 around. And then you got it back for a final kind of look through and like edits of the.
Yeah.
I think it was harder for Jonathan to do it, because I am so kind of loose and carefree and unstructured with the way that I write a story. I think it was harder for him to deal with that than it was for me. You know, he did so much to make it clean and, you know, just tidy everything up. And
well, and I put a lot of work into my characters. Like the best stories that I've ever written, everything that happens in the plot has to come from the characters rather than anything from outside happening to them. They make the story. So with the final draft and the final work that I put into it, I was quite specific in saying that's not working. That character wouldn't do that. We have to remove that bit there, and yeah, bring it all together. So it's just it was a more gradual process than maybe it would have been if one of us had written it separately.
But I do think it worked well that we kind of took a draft and passed it back and forth, and then he worked on something else. Well, I had my time with the draft, the most recent draft. I think if we were actually collaborating more, like, you know, paragraph by paragraph or something like that, discussing as each of us were going through it, like that, we probably would have ended up just like it would just be hard, I think, because we are quite different in our approaches. So yeah, it worked really well, I think, to pass it back and forth and to kind of not think about it when we didn't have it on our desk, you know. Worry about it when it was in front of us. Yep.
Yeah, because you guys are like, obviously you've got like similar tastes for some stuff, but you're very, very different creatives, and even down to and this might sound like an odd thing to say, but like even down to sort of just like cultural and social background, because we're from different sides of the planet. And even though I think it, like, UK and USA, we, like, you know, oh, we're pals, we're quite similar, but there are some really major differences.
Yes. Since I've moved here, I find out more and more just how vastly different we are.
They call jugs cups. What?
Jug.
What
is a jug?
They call a washing up bowl a bin.
A tub. That's probably more common. But yeah, I think that was interesting too, because we've had, and we always had in the time that we've been together, discussions about, oh, do you guys say this here? Would you say it like that? And so I know some of our phrasing is really close, but just enough different that I'm like, oh, we wouldn't say it that way in America. And so a lot of it, we're writing the book for, generally an American audience, because they have a much bigger indie horror scene there. And so it was a lot of me making sure there weren't British spellings of words, and that we were correct on phrasing, but even down to things like putting a period after Mr. and Mrs. Titles for people, because you guys don't usually include them. But to the American eye, just that little thing is like, oh, that's missing, that. So yeah, it was interesting. We had a lot of discussion about our differences.
Yeah, so I've written a book that takes place in Texas before I've even visited.
You've even been to Texas.
We're visiting in a couple of months, but the book's out now. So.
But that's the beauty of Google, really, is like you can do a lot of research online and find out about the plant life and about the geography and the people and things like that. And my sisters live in Texas now, so I have been there, but yeah, it's fun. I think, to educate ourselves both. And we won't be able to go to West Texas when we're there, because it's like 3 hours away or 4 hours.
A bit more, yeah.
Yeah, from where my sisters live in San Antonio, which is crazy that you can still travel that far in one state, and it's not even the end of the state yet. So we're not going to go to the spot where we've made this place up to be, but we'll be closer than we are now. By a bit.
I was thinking about like the consideration just for spellings, because I saw the funniest book review. I don't remember what book it was, but it was a real rant of a negative review, and it was like, oh, it's just misspellings all over the place, like this instead of this, and I was like, the author's British. It was just use where they're just not used in American spellings, like color and things like that. And I was dying reading that. I was like, oh, this poor guy, like, he's so angry, and he thinks he's making all the points, and just didn't realize the nationality of the writer. I have these funny conversations all the time, because I work with Stephen Kosniewski, who's an American indie author. Yeah. And so every now and then, when we're like emailing back and forth, I'll say something and he's like, what's that? What did you just say? Like, what does that mean? And I'm like, oh, and sometimes he'll just like randomly message me and be like, what's this word?
Yeah, you're like his American dictionary now. Yeah, I have a weird thing happening since I've been here. It's, how long is it now? Like just over a year and a half. Mm-hmm. Where I have this weird mix of things I say or how I spell things, and I'm starting to kind of forget what, like, I think I spelled something with a British.
Yeah, you spelt realize with an S.
Yeah, but I didn't realize that is the British spelling and not the American when I was typing something for an American, I think it was on Facebook or something, I don't know, but yeah, it's just a weird, like it's like a limbo, like a word and phrase limbo, kind of in between the two places that. Yeah, I don't know what's going on anymore. It'll be fun to be around my family to see like what they notice about how the way that I speak or things I say, has changed.
I bet they'll think that you sound British, even though to the British ear you don't.
Yeah, but exactly.
You get that even here, because I'm Welsh, and when I was a kid, we moved around a lot, so we lived in a few different places in England, and every time I went to England, everyone would be like, wow, you're the most Welshy sounding person I've ever heard. And then I'd come back here and people were like, oh, you sound English, as that's the attitude. And
just straddling the two, really.
And I think when you're a kid, you pick it up, regional slang and accents a little bit, absorb it a bit more sponge-like than maybe you do as an adult. Like maybe it takes a bit longer as an adult. But I just remember we lived in Dorset for a while, and I don't remember what my accent sounded like. I was a kid. I think I was 7 when we lived there, so I really don't remember. But I did hear myself on a home video that my cousin had, a Christmas home video, and I sound like a little farmer. Like a type of like a Dorset. I think it's quite a cute accent on a kid. I was like, I'm sad I grew out of that. being back here, but yeah, according to my fellow Welshies, I don't sound very Valleys, apparently. They're all mixed up at some point.
Yeah, and there's no going back, really, I think, once it's a little bit in you. It's just kind of there. What do you...
Can we talk a little bit about your I'd love to just talk a bit more about your experience in publishing, because that's like a lesser known area for people who are fans of authors. Like, they don't know much about like the process of putting an anthology together, for example, which, guys, I did not know the horror putting together an anthology before I worked on one earlier this year. And it wasn't like just me on my own or anything. And things that you just don't realize that the editor has to consider. Like things like when I've been submitting to anthologies, I will never again be offended that my story didn't make it into an anthology. Because like you just don't realize, like, first of all, the absolute deluge of the submissions.
Yeah.
And then
Oh, you did an open submission, did you?
Yeah, we had some invited authors, and then we had a Kickstarter campaign so that we could invite like open subs in, and they were just considerations that things I would never have thought of, because obviously you've got like a limited budget if you're trying to pay everyone like that from a pool that already exists. And there were things like, we had like it was a ghost themed anthology, and we had like 4 ghost detective stories, and they were all really good, but obviously you just can't fill up 4 of your 6 spots with detective stuff.
No.
Otherwise it's boring because it's samey. And oh my gosh, we were just in a Skype meeting at 2 a.m. my time, because obviously they're in the US, and we were just there for so long, just going round and round about like, but we could use this story's great, and then the other one complements this other one that this other guy like, and I just didn't know.
Have you ever done an open submission? I never have.
Yeah, we did Forgive.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, TJ and I Forgive.
Huh.
I don't think I probably would want to publish other people again, just because if someone else was just editing, like, I feel like that's my problem, is having to edit everything and then feeling like I'm not good at knowing what is a line between giving edits or rewriting someone's story for them. Like, I'm not trained as an editor, really. So I think that was the hardest thing for me. But the formatting and all of that type of stuff, like, I had already been doing that for my own books. And so I didn't find that part challenging, really. I think it was probably just having to decline people, I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, that was
people down.
Having to reject stories and send those emails out is already bad enough. If you didn't even really like the story that much, you still feel bad about it. But then when it was an author that you like, and a story that was deserving of a place, but there was just something else that was similar and it just fit a little bit better.
Yeah.
And you can't go writing like these big long personal the reasons because you'll be there, because I think we had the open submission. We were getting like submissions trickling in over like the 2 or 3 months, because we had it open for quite a long time, and then it was literally like in the last 5 minutes of the submission window, I was in the inbox and it was just like boom. It's like, oh my god,
everyone looked at their calendars on their phones and were like, oh shit.
Yeah.
How to write a story.
What do you do if you come up against an issue like you've invited an author, but then the story that they've given you really doesn't like go very well with your theme or something? What do you do?
I've never done an open submission, but I rejected one invite from Visions from the Void, because it just didn't fit, and I didn't feel like it was a focused enough story. And I've had plenty of rejections before. I very rarely will submit to something and just assume I'm going to get in, because that's not realistic. So I just told myself, this is just part of being a writer.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not one of these people who gets upset if I get a 1-star review. I see people putting posts up on, books of horror and on their own pages saying someone reviewed my work badly. It's like, there are so many reasons why someone might do that. And it's just part of being an author.
It's part of being human, honestly. Not everyone is going to like you. Not everyone's going to like what you put out. Like we are not for everyone
either when it comes to stories, unless
Yeah.
you've got a personal, connection to someone and they reject you because they think you're a dick or whatever. Generally speaking, it's just because, like Kaylee was saying, it's either it wasn't good enough or there are other reasons. Like there were 10 stories that were good enough.
But that's the thing is, it's hard for people on the outside because they don't have the benefit of all of the knowledge that you have about all the other stories that were submitted. And and Jonathan tries to remind me, because I've had a few rejections over the years. I don't submit a lot to other submissions. I tend to be kind of greedy and put things in collections and publish them myself. But when I do and I get rejected, Jonathan does a good job to kind of remind me of, like, you don't know what else you were up against and what they had to consider. And there's just so much that goes into making those decisions that you can't possibly.
And with my most recent release before Motel Styx, Your Loved Ones Will Die First, the beautifully named, but that was partly collaborative. I had 3 other excellent authors contribute chapters. I gave them the setup to it and said, these are the rules of this world. This is this is your victim, essentially. But I said, this is part of a larger piece. And I want each of these to be as wild as you can make it, but it also needs to sit within the world. So, I'm reserving the right to be able to edit your work. And they were all just so cool about it. None of them minded at all. They just seemed to be really happy to collaborate, which was amazing. And it would have really sucked if I'd worked with someone who had been quite particular about it when it needed to consider the whole rather than just their chapter. So far I haven't really had any issues with having to edit or reject.
Do you know something, an element that I would have never considered before? I've never done this as a writer, but I have. But so when you have some short stories and you haven't sold them or whatever, and then you see a submission call that like almost fits something you already have. So you're like, oh, I'll rewrite to like so it fits the theme. It was so funny. Sometimes if the author's done a good job, you don't know that that's what they did. Like it reads as something they wrote especially for the sub call. But I have read a few submissions where there definitely was not going to be a ghost in that story. I still respect it.
Only done that once.
Shot, like it's it's you got to be careful about like the projects you try and throw your hat in the ring for anyway, haven't you? Like, so if you see something good and you're like, oh shit, the deadline's in 2 days, like I still like respect it if I can tell someone's really like in a short period of time try to rework something to fit it. But it's very eye-opening being on that side of the table. So when I see people make comments, like I've seen people online say things like, oh well, that anthology is probably just full of that person's mates, and I'm like, I bet they had to awkwardly reject their close friends because their stories didn't fit. Or it's like, the more people you actually personally that you invite into a thing, the more uncomfortable that is if like it hasn't planned. So
and rejections as well can actually be a good thing. So the last story that I submitted for an anthology was Y'all Ain't Right, the Evil Cookie anthology. I've worked with K-Trap Jones a bunch of times, and I love submitting stories to his anthologies. And he said it just didn't fit. I thought it was a good story. I liked it. I was a little bit sad, but like, not everything is always going to get in. So I just thought, wait a minute, I've got a whole bunch of stories that I've either never released or have appeared in books that aren't getting read anymore, and they're good stories. So why don't I put together a collection, including that unpublished story, write maybe 2 more, and then release it as a body horror themed collection. And that was the first time I've been nominated for a Splatterpunk award. And I never would have released that if it wasn't for being rejected. So good things can come from that as well, as long as you
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with rejection. This was a dark time in my life, guys. But I was made redundant from a job, and sudden, like I say made redundant, they just locked the place up and didn't even tell us. So I turned up for work to find like the door, like, and obviously, I was a student living in Cardiff, like basically living like payday to payday. So the panic that ensued, and the first job that came up that was available was door-to-door sales.
Oh.
And I had to take it. I didn't last very long doing that because that's a time. But the general rule of like averages that they teach you there is for every 100 doors you knock on, you'll get 3 yeses for the sale. So that sounds very bleak, and it is when you're wandering around in the rain all day trying to convince people to tell you about their electric bills and let you into their house and whatever. But I started applying that to everything. So submission calls, I'm like, right, how many anthologies have I subbed to? And I think I'll probably get 3 for every 100. Like it works out a little bit better than that, but like that's generally my attitude going in, is like law of averages. Eventually, someone will like this story. It will suit a thing or whatever. So
it's a good approach.
That's a very healthy approach for sure.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a rejection or even a good negative review.
Sometimes the most negative reviews, especially when you write something extreme, are the ones that make sales.
Isn't that what happened with Womb? I think that did okay, but I think it was Womb. Correct me if I got the wrong book here, but I'm pretty sure that had like a resurgence because somebody on TikTok was like furious about it.
Almost certainly.
Probably.
Yeah.
A lot of books have got TikTok famous because they pissed off this person or that person, and
then people want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they need to know, so they go buy the book to find out.
Yeah.
Rage is an excellent selling device.
Yeah. Like that. I just think, and also if you only have good reviews, it does look to the outside eye like it was just your friends and family reviewing your book, especially in indie, because the reviews tend to come in quite slowly over time. So I feel like your book is getting a bit more reach when you start, like when your average star rating goes down to like 3.5 and you're like, okay, so like I don't know of finding my book now, so that's okay.
I do love getting reviews from people whose names I've never seen anywhere, because I'm like, okay, all right. I don't care what they rate it, but they're reading it, and that's exciting.
I really enjoy an angry rant review because I'm always just so amused that someone was so pissed off by a book that they felt the need to take to the internet about it. It really cracks me up for some reason. And when I did that extreme horror reading vlog, and I got to Womb, so I was like really enjoying it, and then it was like up to like the last chapter, I was like, wait a minute, this is extreme horror, and I asked for extreme horror and everyone recommended it, and this is like, there's some upsetting stuff in here, but it's not really very extreme. And then I got to that last chapter and I was dead. I couldn't stop laughing. I was like,
amazing.
I was crying. I had to get up and go and talk to my husband because I didn't even know. I was like, do you think this is physically possible?
I had those thoughts.
I was so
There's
amused.
internet evidence
Did you
that
read it
suggests
to me?
it might be.
You read it to me, didn't you? Yeah.
Oh wow, what an experience.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan's a great reader, like a storyteller. And that was fantastic.
Yeah, I still love that book.
Yeah, I had like, I don't know if and then Duncan commented on the video, and I've never spoken to Duncan before, so he was like, oh, thanks for reading my book, sorry you weren't a big fan of the ending, hopefully you'll like my next one better. I was like, oh no, to be clear, I'm a huge fan of the ending. Like I was like, don't, like, I know that maybe you weren't intending to be hilarious with it, so the way that I took it, but like, let me assure you that I got my full money's worth of enjoyment out of it.
And more.
Yeah, I was really enjoying it as just like a good story, and then it got to that, and I was like, oh, how he set it up as well, and somehow I just did not because it's outrageous.
You didn't see it coming.
No. It's one of the best examples of seeding I've read in like indie horror for sure.
I think maybe it's because it's so outrageous that your brain just doesn't connect those dots as you're going. But some people are like, oh, well, it's obvious. And I was like, you read this genre often, don't you? If you're like, Yeah, yeah, it's funny, but like, yeah, the idea that I pick up books on negative reviews all the time. There's a YouTuber I like that also reads a lot of horror, but has completely different horror taste to me. So every time she's like, "Oh, my top 5 worst books of the year," they all go straight on my wish list because I know that they'll be my favorite. So yeah, it's always good to. I think it's a better look for you as an author if you just don't respond to negative reviews. Like, don't go off on the reviewer.
Oh, definitely
No.
don't respond. When I was like very young in my writing career, it was important to me. It was hard for me. I don't really care now, but it was very hard for me to see negative reviews just because I was very new to it. But
yeah.
I liked hearing what people had to say because, and I still do, but I had a long way to grow. Like there was a lot that I needed to learn and to improve with my writing. And a lot of the things that were pointed out in those negative reviews, I have since addressed and improved in my writing because someone had the guts to say to me, you know, because your friends and family, they're just going to be proud you put a book together.
Yeah.
Like, especially because I did self-publish it and it looked, you know, really good for my first book and things. And so it's important, I think, for people to be honest about their opinion, good or bad, as long as it's told in a constructive way and not just attacking and things. Because I think if you can take it, you can use it and come out better for it in the end.
And I mean, in general, I agree. Don't respond to negative reviews. But I have had a good experience where I did. So a Bookstagrammer put up I think it was a 2-star, maybe even a 1-star review. I'm not sure of what Good Girls do. She had a big old following. She put a lovely picture up, like it looked great, and she got loads of eyes on my work. And even though she had a load of problems with it and gave it a low-star rating, because she'd given me exposure and bothered to, you know, upload a picture, I put an authentically positive comment. I was just like, thank you so much for checking out my work. I really appreciate you uploading the picture. Sorry it didn't work for you. You know, same as Duncan said, hopefully the next book will, or maybe I mentioned the fact there was going to be a sequel or something. And then she replied to that, bang the table again, and then bought the sequel and did a much more positive response to it. And yeah, I think as long as you're respectful and you don't take things personally, and you know, as long as you reply in an authentic way, I think it can be okay.
Well, and I think actually it's important too for some authors who are capable of being so gracious and understanding and polite when responding. It's important for reviewers to know that they are safe to express their opinion. Regardless of what end of the spectrum it's on.
I tend to.
Otherwise, what's truth? You know, like it just everything's sugar coated. That's terrible.
Yeah, I've had like a few like criticisms. So when I released Corpsing, I had a 1-star review from someone that wrote, "Oh, the title was misleading because it's called Corpses and there are hardly any corpses." And
it's a pun, guys.
My impulse to be like, "You've misread the title, my guy." But I thought, if I do that, I'm just going to look like I can't take that someone didn't like my book, because if they'd liked the book, it wouldn't have mattered what it was called anyway. So I was like, you know, that's like it tickled me a little bit, but I was like, you know,
just you'd be splitting hairs. Really, it's like whatever. Yeah, think what you want. You can't be helped.
I emailed a reviewer that gave me like, it wasn't like a completely negative review of my most recent collection, but it like she had like a major problem with aspects of certain things. And the only reason I emailed her was because she clearly felt like really guilty for writing that in her review. She was like, "Oh, I really hope that the author isn't like really offended that da." So I was like, so I sent her an email saying, like, you know, thank you so much for taking the time and writing such a thoughtful review, and I've taken your criticisms on board, and like, you know, really appreciate you taking the time to bother talking about it. So
talk about it at all.
Yeah.
And then sent her a letter bomb.
By the way, this email's laced with anthrax. Don't tell me how it works, but it does.
Yeah. No, it's all like I think I've had
this in 10 days. All of your friends will die.
Yeah, you start to chain letter. Chain letters. Send this to 10 more people. Otherwise your cat will kill you in your sleep. Oh gosh, yeah. I think on the flip side, because I review as well, I have I teared a book to pieces, but as nicely as I possibly could. But I just had some major things. I was like, I have to bring up the things I don't like because otherwise I'm lying in my review. And the author messaged me and thanked me for my time and everything. And because he was so gracious about it, I reviewed everything he's released since then.
Oh, wow.
So this is what I mean. Like if someone is like just an adult about it, I'm not gonna like not read another book of theirs just because I didn't like the first one. And I liked all of his work apart from that first one. So yeah, there's something to be said for sort of like polite etiquette, I suppose, in both sides. I've kept you longer than I meant to.
I don't even know what time it is.
I don't know where I am, Michelle.
What is this place? Who are you?
Who am I? Is there any piece of your individual works outside of your newest release that you wish had more eyes on it, that you'd like to tell readers about, that I can link in the description for you?
I think if anyone has heard my answers during this conversation, they would know my answer to this question, and that is Old Farmhouses of the North.
Okay.
It is very bleak. It's kind of hard to tell. Like, it has a darker cover now, but it covers some really dark concepts and has just some really unique stories. There's like a weird alien story in it. There's a werewolf story. There's a story about grave diggers, but they're just all, I don't know. Like I said, it's some of my best writing. It really deserves to be enjoyed by more people. And
yeah, it really does.
And I read under the name Michelle Von Eschen. Old Farmhouses of the North is under that.
Yeah. And seeing as Motel Styx, I would say, is a step down in extremity, and the next piece I'm going to be writing is much more mainstream horror, let me suggest that people check out Your Loved Ones Will Die First if you want something that is utterly unchained and deranged.
Unhinged.
And yeah, some completely wild, grotesque, extreme scenes all wrapped together with, I think, a decent mystery and story.
So you'd say it's more of a mystery thriller then?
And it's got contributions from three awesome authors, as I said. Megan Stockton, Ryan Harding, and Stuart Bray all had put their dirty little fingers inside it.
Well, What a phrase to end on. I do have one more question, and this is now a staple of this channel, and you will not be judged on your answer, but unless you know the answer. But do either of you know what this is?
It seems like it looks like a toy from McDonald's. Like it's a weird, like Grimace type character.
I don't want to say what it looks like.
Yeah, it has some similarities to some things. When we stop recording in a second, if you don't hang up, I will share the secret with you. This has become a running gag in author interviews now because I asked the first person as a joke, and then it turned into a thing because people were commenting, like asking me what it was. So now it's turned into, will I ever find an author that knows what this is?
That knows what it is.
Yeah, and I still, as always, just for anyone listening or watching, I am offering a prize if you know what this fella is, but don't cheat and, reverse image search it or something. But yeah, I'll tell you both, but you're both sworn to secrecy because you're going to be in the inner circle of trust now. So, if the next person I interview after you suddenly knows, I'm going to know you spilled.
Or that they Googled it. I mean...
Or they Googled it.
I can keep a secret.
All right, good, cool. Just start telling you all of my dramas then. Just offload all of my stuff. Thank you both for doing this. It was really fun to get to talk to both of you with your different perspectives, and really looking forward to reading your new book and then backtracking through the couple of things that I've missed from both of you as well from your back catalogue. So I'll be putting the links to books and social media and everything in the description for people who would like to stalk Jonathan and Michelle online, and sample their ways and stuff. I'll put the sales links for things up. So yeah, I guess we'll leave it there for today, and hopefully I can get you back. Maybe wait for a part 2 when you have your next pieces of work coming out. You can come together or separately, whatever you want. So you're always welcome.
This was originally meant to be Jonathan's video, but I had the audacity to write a book with him and butt in. So
yeah, no, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, that's
thank you very much.
What's yeah, you have to share all of your stuff now. I hear that's how it goes with marriage, isn't it? That's the deal. Cool.
Alone.
So on that weird note, we ended nicer a few seconds ago. I don't know why I said that. I'm
editing for.
You did say you're a waffler, Kayla. You said you prefaced this whole thing.
Here it is.
I've gone a bit peculiar. Sorry, guys. I will release you, and we'll say bye to everybody for now, and then I'll fill you in on the secret. So, bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.